Selling a home can be a very stressful experience. While it's tempting to focus on the potential profit that you're going to make as a seller, especially in a market where home values are up, you don't need to forget about the expenses that you're going to incur along the way. The last thing you want to do is get that closing statement a few days before closing and be shocked by the numbers that you see. So let's talk about a little bit of the common expenses when you're selling a home. Obviously, the biggest expense you're going to face is the realtor commission. So whatever amount you and your real estate agent agree on, that's going to be split between them and whoever brings the buyer. So that is going to be your biggest expense. Now, if you do that pre-listing home inspection, then you may end up having to make some home repairs or improvements. Or when your realtor comes over, they may say, hey, did you notice this? Hey, I would probably do this. If you've got a purple bedroom, they may suggest that you get it painted to a more neutral color. It may not be a substantial repair, but you may incur some cost of deferred maintenance or updates before you put your home on the market. You also need to take into account staging. Now, we don't do a whole lot of home staging around here, but if you do need someone to come in and give you an idea of how to make your home look better for not only the photos, but for the everyday showings, that could incur you a cost as well. We've talked before about doing a pre-listing home inspection and the benefits of doing those. If you pay for the inspection up front, that could be roughly $400 to $500 depending on the size of your home. I've had some sellers who wanted to do an appraisal before they listed. If you have a unique home, a home that is very hard to comp for whatever reason, then you might want to consider getting an appraisal done. So that way we kind of know this is what we're looking at if the buyer does financing. Typically an appraisal is going to cost you $500 or $600 as well. Then you're going to have some closing costs when we get to closing. The buyer may negotiate for you to pay a portion of their closing cost. You're not going to know that until you actually get the offer. But typical closing costs for a seller at closing are going to be a closing fee to the title company. Normally that's going to be $100 to $150. You're going to have to pay the title company for the warranty deed preparation. Again, you're looking at $75 to $150 depending on where you go. They're going to prorate your property taxes and HOA fees if you're in an HOA at the time of closing. So depending on what time of the year you sell will depend on how much the proration is going to be. And then if you want your funds wired to you, there's typically going to be a fee for the wire. If you have a payoff that the title company has to overnight the payoff to your lender, you're going to incur that charge as well. So normally what I tell people is your title company fees are going to be like $500 or less, plus whatever your proration for property taxes and HOA fees if you have those. You cannot forget about moving expenses. And that's one I think that most sellers don't think about immediately when they're listing their house. But if you need to move, even if you're just moving locally, I mean, you're probably looking at $1,000 to $2,000 depending on how big your house is and how much stuff you have to move. If you're having to move out of state, I mean, you could be looking at $4,000 or $5,000, if not more. So don't forget to factor in what your moving expenses are going to be. That includes buying boxes, hiring packers, hiring the actual moving company, all those types of things. Then you're going to have what I call miscellaneous cost. So let's say the house is vacant that you're wanting to sell. You've already moved, or it was a rental home and you've just decided rather than hold on to it, you're ready to sell it. You're going to incur utility expenses. You want to leave the utilities on so that when a buyer gets their home inspection done, they're on. That's not going to be an issue. Inspector needs the utilities on, and the appraiser is typically going to need the utilities on as well. So you need to have your utilities on, so you're going to have expenses with that. We're in the middle of summer here, midway through August, and I'm not going to tell you have to keep the HVAC set at like 70 degrees to make it comfortable, but I would suggest leaving your air on, even if you're putting it at like 78 degrees, just so it's welcoming to a buyer. They're not going to feel like, oh my God, it's stifling in this house and I want to get out of here as quick as I can. So think about those types of costs. Are you going to need to get the house cleaned? Is somebody going to need to come in every 2 to 3 weeks and just spruce it up a little bit so that it looks good? Factor those types of costs in. So just remember, when you're selling your house, it's great to think about the potential profit you're going to make, but be sure you have realistic expectations of what it's going to cost you to sell your home as well.